We're live on Twitter. What's up, y'all? Hi, Twitter. How you doing? Pepe the Frog's on Twitter.
Yeah.
You ever read the responses? Well, it's after the beat. I'm Luke Thomas, and this is the rest of the career. You ever read I go and read all the responses to all of Trump's tweets because it's the dumbest people on both sides of the aisle arguing. And
I do that too.
It's a bizarre little pleasure I take. Anyway,
what about the Adam Schefter tweets?
Adam
Always
Schefter?
the first one's all about how their wives left them. What's with that? I don't know.
Oh, I did it to Kirk Cousins for like a whole year. He would tweet, I'm at the new, I'm going to be adopting puppies at the new Petco in Hyattsville. I'd be like, Kirk, my wife left. He'll be like, dude, you all right? Any problems at home there, buddy? All right, well, this is called After the Beat, and this is where we take all of your questions using the hashtag #TheMMABeat. I have selected some. Now, boys, hold on just a second if you can put that graphic down. Here's what I have done. We have some serious ones in here. I have a higher level of goofy ones today because Ariel likes to be very, he likes to button up. And me, you know me.
You unbutton.
I like to unbutton a little bit. So we're going to have a little fun today on this one. But there are some serious ones as well. Let's proceed. All right. There's been talk by Meltzer that Fox UFC talks are not going well. I don't know if you guys saw this or not. I can fill you in if you didn't. If you were the bosses at WME, now known as Endeavor, what would you do at this point to make the product more attractive? Is there anything left to try? I don't know if you guys saw this. Meltzer had a thing, I think, in the Wrestling Observer newsletter saying that the UFC had hoped to have a deal done by the end of last year. Now it's already April. There's nothing in sight. I guess they're targeting now summer as some kind of a thing. He did note that Turner was really interested, but Turner, of course, the antitrust trial between AT&T and DirecTV with the Department of Justice started on, I think, last Monday. So that's ongoing. So they're just not going to do anything until that's over. But you heard what he said. Danny, I'll pitch to you first, as you are the youngest member of this panel. What can they do at this point?
Floyd, I'm just kidding.
Floyd, man.
I mean,
2 words.
I think there's a lot of things they could do, but a big one is promoting these fights accordingly. There's a misconception that, we need to create buzz, so let's just put more fights, more cards. But a lot of those go unnoticed. I mean, if I were to tell you what fight cards happened in January or February, you'd have maybe trouble recalling how many fight cards went on. So I think they should, look to scale down a little less, promote more. Why is UFC 223 being talked about? Because there's been time to promote, not only for them, but the media has time to write columns, write pieces, interview the fighters, and then, create storylines. I think there's plenty of talent coming up in the UFC right now that's very attractive. Let's bring that out to light. Let's tell their stories. Let's promote events. Let's have a little less, but more quality.
I mean, the best thing they can do is create more stars. And I feel like we're finally to the point where we're starting to see a couple of names come up that have that potential. Nurmagomedov being a huge one. If he gets over, and does his thing in Brooklyn, I really believe he then enters a new sphere. And I think that he also represents a whole different market. And I feel like that's also, plays into his kind of global flair. That's one thing. If I'm the UFC, I'm making a huge, especially if it comes down to summer, I'm making a huge international fight week. I'm going to showcase just about anything I can, without compromising, 6 months around it in terms of the events. But I would try to make that a very big showcase of the talent, some compelling things. And honestly, man, like guys like Brock Lesnar and stuff. Like as soon as it's available, put those guys back in there, plug them back in there, because I feel like they need that kind of oomph, at the end of this year. But there's no obvious thing. I mean, the bottom line is, it got gussied up the best it could when Lorenzo Fertitta saw. I mean, you couldn't have put a bow on it better than right at that moment. And we just since then, Ronda Rousey has moved on. Obviously, Conor McGregor, we don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully, if he comes back, that's another big, because every time he comes around, there's a lot of hoopla that comes with it. So I'm sure that'll be a big priority, is to get him back in there. But just in general, they need those big guns. You know what I mean? To step up and kind of give it some enthusiasm on that level again.
I think you guys are kind of hitting on the health of the sport for fans, for viewers, and I think that's the stuff that I kind of hope happens. But I feel like with this TV deal, and by the way, I like that they just call him Meltzer. It's like he's like Pele or Madonna or something. We don't even need the first name. But the point that he was getting at. This is ongoing. These are ongoing negotiations, and I don't know that you need to have Brock Lesnar scheduled to a fight. I don't know that you need to book Floyd Mayweather. I think, though, if you can have the words Mayweather and UFC in a lot of headlines, and Lesnar and UFC in a lot of headlines. I think that all they really need to do is play with possibilities, expectations, insinuations. If they could just toy with those concepts enough, so that some company says, well, we want to be a partner with these guys when they bring Lesnar back, so that we're the ones who are benefiting from that. When they get that Floyd Mayweather fight, I think that's all they need to do. I think the stuff that your guys are talking about is the stuff that's really more meaty. That's the stuff that has a little more nutritional value, and that's the way that I hope they do go. But meanwhile, just talk about this other stuff.
We got a bunch of these to
My
get
only
through,
issue
so.
with okay, go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish your point.
My only issue with that is that, I mean, then you got cable companies or whoever wants to take on this UFC TV deal. Then you got them banking on possibilities or dream scenarios. Whereas, look, we got Sean O'Malley. Look, we got Darren Till. Look, we got Santiago Ponzinibbio fighting at UFC Chile. They have fighters that are.
There's got to be a
attractive.
younger crop. I feel like, really honestly, there has to be a young crop, because what is the TV? They
have
want to
Max
know
Holloway.
that there's a future and it's going someplace, someplace good. You know.
I would say, to respect to the question, people ask, yes, in the future they can do things. What can they do right now? Nothing.
Yeah.
All that shit's baked in. Like whatever they've done the last 7 years, it's just in. You can't do a whole lot going forward. Now you can promise a different kind of deal, but right now, what can they do? Nothing. So
Get
there
rid
you
of
go.
face the pain.
Yeah, just face that pain, player. Step to this. Who is the best prospect in MMA currently? I don't know if you boys saw it, but Gary Tonin looked phenomenal
he
at
did,
one.
actually.
And
right up there. He was right up
which was hilarious because shouts to BJJ Scout. You guys ever watch BJJ Scout? Sometimes. Dude's amazing. He did a McGregor and Tony and Habib breakdown video. And he was like making fun of fans who were like, Habib's a different animal, a different kind of animal, a different thing, with these like sort of like nondescript ways of poor analysis. So he would use World Star Hip Hop videos, fights in the street to teach people. It's the level of trolling is truly epic. But in any case, he had, if you look in the comments of Gary Tonin's video on YouTube, a bunch of people were like, Gary Tonin's, people don't know who they are. It's like, Gary Tonin's ground game's not that good. He doesn't really know what he's doing on the ground. It's like, oh my God, do you know what you're saying? But you know what? It speaks to something, Jeff, which was, he didn't hardly use his ground game.
Yeah,
a little bit, but not much.
He looked good.
That's actually I think that actually is a positive when people are saying to this absolute jiu-jitsu master, well, he doesn't have much ground game, because if he doesn't have to put it on display, it's, same with, we saw Mackenzie Dern out there fighting, and if she had gone out there, I mean, I know she got lit up a little bit on her feet, but if she had gone out there and put on a show as a stand-up fighter, and people afterward were saying, well, she doesn't have much ground game, that'd be a good thing, because that shows you've developed into something bigger. So I guess those people who are thought of as one-dimensional fighters, when they can show some other dimension, that makes them a good prospect in my mind.
Who do you got, Danny? Anybody on your radar?
Is Brian Ortega still considered a prospect?
Not anymore. He's a contender.
Right, he's
now.
a contender, right? He's going to be fighting for the title. But he's so young.
What about Ed Ruth? What about Dylan Dennis? You guys got no
Dylan Dennis-
names.
Let's wait till
Still have all
Dylan
those
Dennis
guys coming
fights
up from
first.
like jiu-jitsu and wrestling. That's
Yeah.
I do like you guys like the Stylebender, guys like that. Who,
Yeah.
they're
Adesanya,
good.
yeah.
Exactly. So there's guys like that. So if you're only looking at guys who are just starting, I mean, certainly that guy I feel like is right up there. I feel like you could just look at him and you know that he's going to have a big future. You know what I mean?
Keep an eye out for Logan Storley as well.
Yeah.
Logan Storley is going to be making some big waves here probably this
Speaking
year.
of, real quick, you mentioned Ortega. I was wondering, maybe you can answer this. Like, has there ever been a situation where there's literally 3 guys coming off? Like, so there's 3 guys coming off of losses to Ortega. Like, he's destroyed the division. There's like
Swanson,
Edgar, and who was the other one? There was somebody else fighting on this card coming up.
On
But anyway,
UFC 223?
yeah.
Oh, Moicano.
Exactly. So I was like, when's a situation where you've like, there's 3 guys who literally are being booked after losses to Ortega? None of them have fought since then.
That's crazy.
What a destroyer.
Yeah, all his wins by stoppage.
I know.
It's crazy. All right, what do we have next? Here we go. We'll start on the other side of the table. Chuck, what non-MMA related thing, I like how it's only one thing you could be doing, are you guys currently reading?
Well, I read a lot of fiction, and I was reading
Give an example.
Dan Sean's Ill Will. It was really good.
Why is it good? Tell folks very quickly.
Very sordid, dark, but the writing in it is phenomenal from different perspectives, and it plays with the timeline, and it kind of goes into like what's reverie, how do you lose memories and how does memories mesh and all these things. So it's like there's all kinds of nuance and layers to it, but it's actually really good.
I started a couple of days ago. I started reading Meditations by Marcus Aurelius. It's just like some letters that he wrote. It's more like on the Stoic philosophy side, but I'm just starting. It's very repetitive, but I decided I thought it was interesting. I heard it in a podcast. I heard it was a pretty good book, so I'm starting to read it.
Hustler doesn't count. Jeff, go ahead. It's your turn, buddy.
Okay, well, I don't have something brand new, but I actually brought with me in my bag that I was reading on the train. Lynda Barry, the great cartoonist who for years had her Ernie Pook comics that were in a lot of the alternative weekly papers, and she's just a wonderful writer and storyteller. And she has a bunch of collections of her work, and so I was reading one about her great character named Marlis, and they're all. It's kind of it's kind of comics from the other side of the tracks, I guess I'll say.
Well, fiction is for soy boys. I don't do that. No, I'm teasing. I am actually reading a few books at the same time, which is never advisable, but it's just I can't get enough time to finish one, and I don't want to lose track of the other ones. So I'll give you a couple recommendations. Number one, Tom Nichols' The Death of Expertise. It's a treatise on the nature of expertise. How does one become an expert? Why is that important? What are the limitations of that? What role do they play in society? What role do they play in academia? What role do they play in trade? So it's a very easy book to read.
You sound like an expert on this issue.
Yeah, well, I'm almost done with the book. He's a professor, or was for a very long time, at the Naval War College, a Harvard-educated guy. I'm reading a book on how democracies die based on the work of Juan Linz, who wrote a story. Basically, I don't know if you know this, there are only two kinds of democracies like the United States. The other one is Chile. And essentially all democracies that don't have a parliamentary backing have failed. And we are one of the ones that has the type that has failed. And so these two Harvard professors, political scientists, went and looked at how do democracies ultimately perish? And the answer is sometimes by boot and rifle, but it is more often when the norms inside of the democracy are eroded. And in the case of Venezuela, Hugo Chavez is pardoned and then allowed to participate as an elected official, and then of course he erodes everything from within. That is commonly how democracies die. They trace how democracy died in Italy with Mussolini, and how democracies didn't die when they were under threat by other parties who also tried the same thing. But basically, in the modern era, most democracies die from the inside, not from the outside. So I'm reading that, and I'm reading, two books, but you can always, I finished one of them, I'm halfway done with the other one, but Tim Wu, professor at Columbia University, he wrote The Master Switch, and I'm reading his latest book, The Attention Merchants, which is essentially how the nature of advertising has affected us and really corrupted life as we understand it, both in its peacefulness and its value.
I thought you were reading John Grisham, man.
You ain't reading The Hunt for Red October? Hell no. By the way, I had books on my shelf now in my studio, and people were like, it's like that Bill Hicks joke. You ever seen this? It's like, Bill Hicks has always joked he was getting a late night dinner, and some waffle waitress came up there and was like, "What you reading for?" Like, not what am I reading? What am I reading for? So I don't end up a fucking waffle waitress. All right, next, please. If you could meet and interview, Jeff, we'll start with you. One person in the history of the world. Who would you choose?
Oh my God! How about, I guess we'd probably I guess it would have to be Ronda Rousey.
Really, Jeff?
Come on.
Really?
The history of the world, my goodness.
Is there any kind of world leader that you would...
That's a tough one,
It's
man.
a very tough one. History of the world, you know?
Yeah.
History of the world. I mean, it's kind of ridiculous. I mean, it's a long. For
right.
me, it would
Just
probably
name
be.
somebody
It would
you wanna
probably,
interview.
it would probably be. It would probably be some artist. I mean,
all right.
artists. So I'd love to interview. Vincent Van Gogh. I'd love
Yes.
to visit. I'd like to interview. Miles Davis.
Those are good.
These
Those
are
good.
people.
All right, Danny.
That's a tough question. I don't know. I recently started reading Meditations, Emperor.
Really, you're going to go that direction?
I'll do Marcus Aurelius. Sure, why not? I mean,
You wouldn't
bright
do,
mind.
You wouldn't do the greatest literary mind in the history of Colombia?
Sure. I mean, there's so many also like Colombian.
No Gabo for you?
I can do Botero, like talk to him.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
I mean, there's a lot of excellent Colombian people.
I mean, God, that's a really tough. But I guess I'd say something like.
How has nobody said Jesus?
Well, it crossed my mind.
It's like, how do you not pick Jesus?
Jesus.
I'm not even Christian at all. How do you not pick Jesus?
Well, I mean, that's certainly up there. But if I'm just thinking about what would be, I don't know. If you think of somebody like Abraham Lincoln, you think about him being the kind of crux of so much of our civilization, everything.
Yeah.
Given the turmoil of the times and everything that kind of was going on, somebody like that would be fascinating if you could go back in time and talk to them. And also just because, he's probably one of the greatest American writers. People don't realize it, but if you ever read his writing, it's amazing.
Shocking.
So it's like
And he was a wrestler.
Was he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a
He was a
wrestler.
wrestler.
Wow.
I would go with Leonardo.
cauliflower
If I didn't have Jesus, if he
I
wasn't,
thought we were kind of not including Jesus.
Jesus is not doing the car wash.
Jesus gets Rick with Mike Golick and Max Kellerman. What do you mean? I can't go back in time. I can go back in time.
I'm Jesus.
I'm Jesus for crying out loud. I would go with Leonardo da Vinci, right? Where the term Renaissance man came from.
Right.
The guy, an inventor, painter, sculptor, the whole nine. I would go with that.
Yeah. That beats Leonardo DiCaprio.
I would need a translator. I would need a translator, but that's
You're not going to get Jesus. But I hear 60 Minutes got Mary Magdalene, so.
Did you guys see the Stormy Daniels thing?
No.
You guys don't want to know my Stormy Daniels opinion.
We don't have time for you.
Oh God, I would love to give it. Basically, no, I can't do it. I can't do it. I don't want to get fired. All right, what's next? Aside from the big American four sports and MMA, Jesus, how many sports are left? Which other sports do you enjoy the most? Now, I'm assuming that for the clarification here, the big American four would be NBA, NFL, MLB, and NHL.
Right.
So for me, I'll start if you guys don't mind. This one's really easy. Soccer.
Yeah.
I love soccer. I know a lot of people don't. What you mean you like that communist kickball? I like communist kickball. What do you want me to say? I think it's an amazing sport. It's one of these sports where when you understand what makes a sport great, it's got the highest participatory rate of any sport on earth. The level of skill at the highest level, not the teams he cheers for, but the teams I cheer for.
The one that are in like 4th or 5th right now, and Atletico's 2nd. So.
I don't have enough fingers to count Champions League trophies.
It doesn't matter about
I don't have enough.
Is your team
I
good now?
literally
Is
don't
your team
have
good now?
better than yours.
No.
Yes, they are.
You picked this
The,
just 'cause you wanted to have
the
you
table
wanted this
doesn't reflect that.
Yeah, you got a bunch of wins over.
Where's the money?
Over Sporting.
You have enough fingers? You have enough
You
fingers?
lost to Espanyol.
Then we gave them away. This is the team that loses to Sporting Gijon, or wins rather, and then they want to claim that they're better. Whatever.
They're the ones that lose to Sporting.
Can I borrow 2 of your fingers so I can show you all the trophies? In any case, I do like soccer. I think it's a fantastic sport. But what about you?
Yeah, I mean, soccer certainly would be the next one after the ones that were named. But I won't wax poetic on that because you already have. I guess I'll name 2 others. One is boxing. It's
yeah, right.
So that's certainly a sport that I love to watch. But the other one, the one that really came out of nowhere. I remember when I first got wired for cable in my house, and I turned on the thing, and first time I ever watched ESPN. First thing that was on was Australian rules football, and you don't see that on the TV anymore. But I had no understanding of what was going on but I became obsessed with watching that stuff to the point where when one of my friends was going someplace to Australia to see for a vacation, I made him bring me back one of the scarves from the Carlton team because that was a team I like to root for. So I'd say Aussie rules football, or footy as they like to call it.
Very quick story on that. I had a guy I used to work with in D.C. in an office, and he was big, but he wasn't like. He didn't scream athlete, okay? And I went to his office, and he had a picture of him. I don't know what they're doing. He was jumping in the air, catching the ball, and I was like, "You played rugby?" Because the ball looks similar. Yeah. And he was like, "No, I was a pro in Australia." So this dude played like high school football, and I guess I don't know if he didn't get recruited very highly to go to colleges, but eventually through some kind of college program ended up in Australia, and then tried out after staying there for an Australian rules football team and made the team. How is that possible? He made the team. Now, he wasn't very good. I think he was only on there for 2 or 3 seasons and then they cut him. But he got a little bit of playing time. And dude, I may not know all the rules of Australian rules football, but I've watched it before. You will see 2 dudes fist fighting on one side of the field, and then the game's just going on the other side. They don't even bother breaking it up.
Yeah.
It's a great sport.
It's a fun sport.
It's a fun sport.
I would say soccer. I just like watching Real Madrid's demise. That's been very enjoyable this season.
Just stop.
Copa del Rey 0, La Liga 0. They're hanging on to dear life.
No one respects your team more. Nobody respects your team.
Atletico's a respectable team.
You have pinstripes like your jailbirds on your terrible uniforms. You were sponsored.
Okay, the uniforms this season are terrible, but the previous, amazing, beautiful.
In the city of Madrid. Real Madrid runs it, not Atletico. I got terrible news for you.
Is that like Yankee?
That's the place where.
Is this like
Fourth,
is
that's
this
the
like
place where
basically like
Madrid
Yankees and Mets? Is that kind of the?
No, it's more like the Yankees and the, I don't know, what's the worst team in Major League Baseball? Something like that. Something like
Could
that.
be the Mets.
Yeah, oh, actually, maybe it is the Mets.
I think there's an upcoming game.
All your star
Real
players
Madrid.
want to get traded to every other team. What are you talking about?
Not true. Diego Costa wanted to get out of Chelsea.
Oh, really?
Opted out for the entire
I got two words for you.
half a season just to join Atletico.
Antoine Griezmann. What is he? He was dying to get out of there. Dying.
Chuck, what do you say? What do we?
Yeah, I'm sorry, Chuck.
Well, I would say that highlight. No, I would say that like if
Highlight?
when I attended the U.S. Open tennis in Queens a couple times, and I
tennis.
I wouldn't say I would seek it out, but anytime I kind of stumble on it, I'm fairly mesmerized by tennis. Like I can watch tennis and I start to get into it immediately. It's just the skill of the one-on-one battle, which it shares a similarity with fighting, because it's like there's so much technique between these two people going at it. It's just instead of dictation of wills, there's the metaphor of the ball and all that stuff. But I'm like, I really find it fascinating when I'm watching it.
All right, let's moment of truth. What sport do you got kind of on the slide disrespect?
Disrespect?
Yeah, we kind of like, it's not much of a sport. I don't really.
Man, I don't know. Do you have one? Do you have one?
I'm sure.
I
I'm sure you have a ton.
disrespect most of them. Anything like bowling or darts.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just it's like.
If we're
please.
going into the bar games.
Well, I will say this: the one thing, and I don't disrespect these sports in their entirety, but tennis and golf. One of the things that bother me about those two sports is that you have to be quiet. You have to.
Yes.
See, I like that
Everybody be
actually.
quiet.
I like that.
You
don't like that?
You go to any big
UFC woos.
you go to any big basketball game, and it's like 1 second to go. The guy's at the free throw line. He's got to make this free throw to tie the game.
Yeah.
And what are the people behind the basket doing? They're like waving around, and the guy has to focus and manage to perform under the pressure of the crowd cheering, roaring, yelling
I
stuff
agree.
out. So that's one. So I won't say that I discredit tennis and golf in their entirety, but it's a little too precious for me.
Well, it's funny in strength sports, right? So you guys may not appreciate this, but you might even just sort of be aware of it. You guys have seen me post deadlift videos. If you ever can, turn on the audio, because in powerlifting, which is is bench, deadlift, and squat, they play metal music and everyone's screaming at them, and I don't really get sized for that at all. I don't like football coach in my face and spittle just lining. I don't
You
get
do
sized.
like a good nosebleed, though.
Yeah, I do like because that's if someone's nose bleeds when they deadlift. To me, that's I think of that as popping a champagne cork, like right. Let's celebrate, yeah. But if you ever watch Olympic weightlifting, and I'm sure you've seen Lisa before, it's very quiet, right? So they get up there and they step on the bar. You can hear them grip the bar, and then you can hear it make contact with their waist, and then go up on the snatch, whatever. I like that. I prefer that actually.
You
I
miss
prefer-
when the UFC used to align with the Arnolds. Remember, like they always had. Like,
Oh, man, it was
that was
so
always cool.
great.
It was always this great intersection of people. Like I loved those shows.
It's
back
just
in the day.
Meathead Central.
It was.
It really was. I prefer the quiet. But like if you go to like a game, you definitely want to be.
Yeah.
I like the dudes in hockey. We got last one on this. I like the guys in hockey who, when they sit on the glass, they bang on the glass like the caged animals. I kind of enjoy that.
Yeah.
All right, we have one more. Yeah. All right. Let's see what we got. Good question. With Chad Mendez's suspension ending soon, any idea? God, I cannot read for S. Any idea on where he stands in the division? Who would be a good return fight? Who wants to field that one?
Man, I forgot all about. Chad
I would have said
Mendez.
Cub Swanson before he got booked with Frankie Edgar. That would have
a
been
good
a
one.
nice fight. I think he's at a space where like he could easily just be a top contender, but we got to see where he's at. So just plug him into a fight against a top 10 guy and see
Who did he last
where he
fight?
goes.
Frankie.
Frankie.
Oh, it was
He
that
got
that
knocked
fight?
out.
Okay. So I mean, you got to take that into consideration too, even though it's been a long time. So I don't know who I'd put him up.
And there's other guys in that division. Correct me if I'm wrong. Feely's in that division, or did he drop the bantamweight?
No, Philly's still at 45.
So then you have also Darren Elkins, another team. alpha
That's the
male
guy I was thinking, but he's on
they're in
this.
the- but they're
yeah, they're on the
ridiculous.
same team.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. And he's on this ridiculous winning streak. It kind of has to make some sense.
I agree. That would be Mendez versus Elkins feels like a very good
yeah.
fight.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like the guys who he was sort of peers with, the division kind of moved on a little bit, you know.
True.
So I'm not really sure. Let me pull up very quickly before we get out of here. Let me pull up the rankings.
Yeah.
Jeff, any ideas on?
Well, I would just say that when you get suspended, I do think that you do drop down. And you said that the division's kind of moved on, and that's probably a good thing. It's good that people have surpassed him and have moved up, because before the suspension, he was the the number 2 guy, I guess, right? You know,
Yeah, so you have Brian Ortega, Jose Aldo, Frankie Edgar, Cub Swanson, Jeremy Stevens at 5, but he's on a bit of a win streak.
Right.
Then you have Josh.
That'd be good though.
I don't think that's a big deal though. But even though Chad is coming off a suspension and a loss, I think it's still a good fight, like a big fight for.
Sure.
Jeremy
Looks like he
Stevens.
might get Aldo, but I agree with your
That's
point.
true, yeah.
Josh Emmett, another Team Alpha Male guy. Ricardo Lamas, who already fought and lost him at UFC Fairfax.
Right.
Chan Sung Jung, Lord knows what's happening with him. Darren Elkins, and then Yair Rodriguez at 10. After that, you have Anato Moicano, Mirsad Bektic, Calvin Kattar, Miles Jury, and Doo Ho Choi. So he's probably going to be dropped fairly low on this one.
He could go from that, anywhere from that 10 to 15 spot, but I'd be fine with.
Did you
honestly,
mention
just-
Dennis Bermudez?
I don't think he was ranked.
Okay, that could be a good fight.
Yeah.
Dennis Bermudez, Chad Mendes.
Yeah, there you go. All right, boys, anything else?
No.
You know, next time we're here, it's going to be fight week.
That's right.
It's going to be on. I'm going to be pumped, psyched, whatever stupid
Just
word.
bleed.
Yeah, whatever stupid word I can think of to talk about it. All right, so Errol will be back next week. I believe there was a moment there where we were a little touch and go about whether the beat was going to be on next week, but it is going to continue.
Might be a different time to.
Right.
It might be a little later, but it is happening.
Be flexible because the media day is actually at 1 p.m. in Brooklyn next week. So I think it's going to go on, but maybe a bit of a different time slot. We'll let you guys know, and of course, we always appreciate your flexibility and when you watch. All right, so subscribe to MMA Fighting, like the video. We really appreciate all that. For Chuck, for Danny, for Jeff, and Ariel in absentia, I'm Luke. Until next time, hands up, chin down, let them fly. This is the MMA Beat.